Welcome to the Heal and Transform podcast with your host, Andrew Ramsden. Andrew finds top experts to pick their brains about what coaches, therapists, and other complementary practitioners can do to level up and amplify the work so we can heal and transform the world together.
G'day everyone. On this episode of the podcast, I speak with jessxgoh. Now, she's an amazing trauma healer and coach. She's the founder of Life in Confidence, and through her workshops, her retreats, and her coaching, she's guided many clients from feeling stuck and tortured by memories of childhood trauma and relationship trauma and abuse to bring out their inner radiance, their passion for life, and their connection to love. Now, we did run into some technical difficulties, so bear with us as we cut to different takes that we did. But on the show, we talk about how Jess takes her clients on this journey, warming them up so that they're ready to invest in themselves for the deeper work, and her lessons from shifting from one-on-one coaching through to running more leveraged group work and retreats. I know you're going to love
it. Hey, Andrew. Hey, everyone.
Hey, Jess, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Good. We got there in the end.
Yeah, we sure did.
And here we are. I'm so glad to have you on. Thank you for joining me.
My pleasure.
So we've known each other for about 18 months now, and what I think is really amazing is to see how your business has evolved over time and how you've come along in leaps and bounds in your understanding of how to move into that more leverage space and how to bring customers on the journey and how to get customers into your workshops, which is really cool because it's not easy, is it?
No, it hasn't been an easy journey for me to get people on board with these kind of events, but I've learned that, I need to learn to let go more of being not being in control, but letting go of being a control freak, should I say, and letting go of the attachment to the outcome. And I noticed that when my energy is a lot more radiant, a lot more expansive and open, then I receive sell-out events, or I get more people interested in what I do.
Wow, isn't that amazing? That's just that energetic shift. I can relate to that, but I see that in what you're doing.
Thank you.
That's really exciting. So I think that's really cool. I'd love to dive into that in more detail, but before we get to that, I'd love to hear more about what it is that you do. So when you talk about being a trauma healer, tell us about that. What does that mean to you? What are we talking about when we say trauma?
That's a really great question. A lot of us think that trauma is, something that you would experience in a car accident or, fighting for the war. And yes, that is trauma. But trauma also show up in different ways. And I'm talking more about emotional trauma that you and I have experienced in our childhood, where we felt rejected or abandoned or humiliated, even relationship trauma, going through a breakup where someone dumps you constantly, you feel that rejection. And for me, I know for sure that in the past, whenever a guy breaks up with me, I feel this immense of depression and emotional overwhelm. And I go into these panic attacks, and it just triggers and brings up all of my anxiety from my past experience with my dad. And it's about having awareness and sharing light on what your trauma is telling you. And in the past, I didn't understand what trauma was about. I didn't understand that I was traumatized. I just thought that I was just an angry bitch who has issues. That's it. But the way I see it now is that trauma is the path to healing your heartaches and your emotional wounds. And when you can embark yourself and fully immerse yourself into that journey, oh my goodness, you just feel more into yourself. And what I mean by that is that you get realizations of your moments of truth. And it's about being connected to who you are, who you were meant to born to be, and what you're meant to do and what you're meant to experience in this lifetime, because it's not all about pain and suffering. There is, things on the other side of these traumatic experiences that you're meant to learn from, whether it's self-love, self-worth, connection to, I guess, life, connection to humanity, connection to your purpose, all these kind of things that you never thought would be possible.
Wow. Yeah, that's awesome. There's a lot I'd like to unpack in that. I think what's interesting for me is to take a step back and say, okay, this isn't just for those people that have suffered significant trauma or abuse in their childhood. I mean, I've known people that have had loved ones murdered, or they went through serious neglect or serious abuse as a child, or they went through really abusive and violent relationships. And I think of that as trauma. And then I look at what happened in my childhood and I think, I just had this idyllic experience by comparison. And I think it's interesting that your mindset was, I'm just being an angry bitch. I don't, almost like I don't deserve this. And I certainly have felt that in the past. Like I don't deserve to be wallowing in this trauma, this so-called trauma. So everybody else has it much worse than I do. I just need to take that teaspoon of cement and kind of harden up and get on with it. So I think it's really lovely to reframe that for myself and say, well, okay, maybe what I've been through was traumatic for me and has had an impact on me. So this is really, it's not just for those people that have had the serious trauma. It's really everyone's experienced this. Is that right? Is that how you see it?
Yeah, definitely. You just sum it up perfectly.
I think that's such an important step, right? It's kind of relative, isn't it? It's not an absolute thing. Everyone has their own experience. And for me, the trauma that I've felt is 100% of what I've known. So it's kind of, my trauma is 100% severity in terms of my story, right?
Yeah, definitely. And how it has impacted your self-esteem and your capabilities and what's possible in your mind. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's been a really important part of my journey to allow myself to have that. And then obviously there's work that you do to move past that so you can let that go.
Definitely.
And tell us a bit about that. How do you help clients let that go and move
I
on?
truly believe that, we all suffer some form of trauma. Some people would label it, oh, wow, that was very traumatic, or this is nothing compared to this person. But we all experience some form of trauma. And I believe that the healing is in the feeling, and the feeling is actually in the healing. So, the healing is also in the feeling as well. Because when we feel, it kickstarts this healing process that we never thought it would be possible. And I notice when, particularly men who come to my workshops or retreats, and it's like the first time in their life they've ever felt alive because they're giving themselves full permission to connect with their feelings. Whether it's good or bad doesn't really matter. What matters is that they're allowing themselves to feel and let those feelings guide them to what it is that they need to heal inside of them. And so I create a really safe space for people to connect with their feelings. And that requires great humility and vulnerability to drop off your guard and your resistances and start appreciating the healing process, which is feeling. And I create different self-reflective activities where it's one-to-one inside the group, where they share and expose how they really feel about themselves. What are the resistance to self-love and self-worth and connection? Really exposing that part of them that they never really shared with anyone else. And when they're able to go out of their comfort zone, and this requires safety, right? That safe support and space, people can do it when they're in that environment. Then they can connect with people on a far more deeper level than they can ever imagine. And so I guess my number one thing is to create safety, a safe space for people to be vulnerable and to drop down their guard and resistances. And the second thing is to create structure in that space. So I need to create structure to help people guide them through that healing process. And the third thing is I create strategies, a variety of different modalities that will engage them on different levels for them to start feeling again. And when they start feeling, they start healing, and they can start releasing old patterns or stuff that's no longer serving them, so they can reach and ascend to a high vibration, I guess, that which is that connection to love. Yeah.
Yeah, which ends up attracting things into us that we're looking for, right? I mean, that's what you were talking about at the beginning. You're filling your workshops by having that high energy and attracting that in.
Definitely, because I've noticed in the past when I haven't done any trauma release work and I've just focused on going to seminars like Anthony Robbins, Landmark, seeing an intuitive coach, but never really done a deep trauma release process. I felt that, I felt very, I felt like I had this spiritual arrogance, that I felt like I knew everything, and that, where I am right now is all good, but deep down it isn't, because I haven't dealt with that emotional pain or trauma within myself for me to be humble and vulnerable to the full depths of the human experience. And when one can do that, wow, they can do anything. That's what I truly believe in.
Yeah, wow. So you're talking about some deep work there, getting people to drop the mask, and that's the process you went through, and getting them to be okay being vulnerable and experiencing their own feelings and sharing that with a group. So that's incredibly vulnerable space. And you talk about the importance of establishing safety in the group, which I think is so true, so critical. And you also talk about this process of taking people on the journey from trauma to trust. And I imagine, correct me if I'm wrong, but I imagine they have to trust you and they have to trust the others in the group to get to that place where they're willing to open up, drop the mask, and be vulnerable and share and feel their feelings. So in some respects, that trauma to trust journey has to happen, at least on the small scale inside the group, very quickly. Is that fair? Is that how you see it?
Yeah, definitely. So when someone new comes to my events, I create safety at the event. If they feel like, I'd want to go to the next level with you, Jess, but I'm just not sure, then I have a one-to-one free discovery session over the phone with them for me to nut out what are their resistances. Am I the right person who can help them? And for me to have a deeper understanding of what's going on in their world, because I can only read someone based on, I guess, their archetype or personality, but I don't really know what's going on in the background. So I feel it's really important to have that one-to-one connection over the phone. And once I'm able to establish that trust over the phone, they're ready to go to the next level.
So you're talking about stages of bringing them on that journey to trust, even inside the group. So trusting yourself, trusting the group, and then I guess eventually trusting others, which would be the ultimate outcome, I assume, so that they can have that energy and connect with people and invite people in.
Definitely, because if they can't trust anyone or themselves, then they're stuck, I guess, in their comfort zone or their safety net, where this is their life, and they know deep down that this is not the life that they want. They know they want something more, but it's their resistance and that need to control all the time that's keeping them safe.
So I'd love to talk more about this process, because I think this is really cool, this journey that you're able to bring clients on to get them to the point where they're able to invest in bigger price tag products that are like your retreats, but it's also deeper work and more vulnerable work. And frankly, it's pushing them way outside their comfort zone. It's really could be scary work for a lot of people. So they're not going to be ready for that straight away, right? You're not going to walk up to a cold lead and say, "Hey, do you want to come on my workshop?" And we're going to drop the mask and we're going to talk about what scares us the most in the world and our trauma, and we're going to feel things and we're going to cry and all the rest of it. that's not going to happen from a cold lead. Is that your experience?
Yeah, I mean, the only closest thing that I had someone coming to a retreat is that they attended a 90-minute workshop, which is still called actually, how to have social confidence and self-love. And she attended to that. And after that event, she decided to sign up to the retreat because the retreat was coming up real soon. And
Mm,
she was coming from a place of heartache and a relationship breakup where she felt betrayed
mm,
and abused and used. And she knew that she needed this kind of work. Like she was ready because she was in so much pain. If she wasn't in so much pain, she wouldn't do the
mm.
retreat.
She could see that direct connection between her trauma and what the retreat was all about, that deep trauma work.
That's correct. Yes.
But,
Like
but
she
also,
knew what she would get out of it, the results.
yeah. And what I also love is you had that first workshop, which doesn't sound very scary. It sounds great. That's all about social confidence and self love. That doesn't sound scary at all. That sounds like exactly what I want. And in that workshop, you're able to then take them on that journey to say, well, actually, if you really want to unlock this, you need to go deeper. You need to go outside your comfort zone. Is that sort of how that ecosystem works?
Well, it's funny that you said that, like, the title itself is something that you would go to. And, it's funny, a lot of people are so superficial these days, right? They think they know what they want, but they think from a level of superficiality, not from a
Mm,
deep place. And so they're
mm,
drawn to that title and they would expect like strategies or tips, what should I say? How should I dress? You know, behaviors, tips and tricks. And instead, I get something completely different. So
mm,
the title is a great way to lure them in.
mm,
And the activities that are involved is not a lecture. The activities involved is about exposing your vulnerability in a safe space where people get to witness your strengths and they get to witness your flaws as well. And that is the human experience. The human experience, it's not just about, oh, I'm so good, I'm this and that. No, it's not. That's just BS, really. The human experience is the willingness to accept your flaws and not see it as a bad thing. Like, just see it as, those traits as a way how you can start, lifting yourself back up and combine that and integrate that with your strengths, that you're whole, you're not broken or flawed or, messed up. It's an ongoing process, and that's what self-development is about. It's an ongoing progress. You never stop until you decide when to stop. And yeah, so I guess that's what it's all about. I guess when people come to how to have social confidence and self-love, when they go and do my workshops, I can definitely tell you they are definitely out of their comfort zone. They feel so nervous and anxious. It brings up social anxiety, and they struggle to connect at times, whether it's eye contact and holding that eye contact in a few minutes. And that's one of the activities, as well as being intimate with one-to-one in terms of body contact. So how far can you get into someone's personal space and look at them in the eye without um, talking or looking away or um, laughing where you felt nervous or uncomfortable. So it's a really great test for people to connect with people on a deeper level, where I'm not interested for people to learn the same thing over and over again and fall on their face, which is to have a pretentious conversation like, how's your day? Or, what do you do for work? I want them to go deeper and connect with them on a human level. And that's what how to have social confidence and self-love is all about. And then when they get those realizations like, whoa, there is a lot of stuff that I need to work on because this is bringing up my social anxiety. This is bringing up, my need to disconnect from people. This is bringing up stuff, how I'm judging and criticizing myself when I'm just looking at someone and they're looking into me. And this is perfect because this is at least they have the realization, okay, you know what, I'm willing to go to the full day workshop, which is Be Your Greatest Potential, because I have an idea what I need to work with. And I realize that I've been covering this up the whole time. And this is a great opportunity for me to go further and work on it deeper.
I love this. I hope you don't mind if we're reverse engineering your product ecosystem a bit here. But I think there's a lot of lessons for us all here on how you're able to take people on that journey. As you say, they come to you saying that this is what they want, this is what they think they want, and obviously it is what they want. But then you know what they really need, and you're able to sort of establish that safety and then really gently guide them further and further outside their comfort zone, taking them deeper into that trauma release work so that they can come out the other side having exactly what they need, which is that powerful transformation in terms of social confidence and self-love that you can't just get with the surface tactics and the surface skills and knowledge. You have to do that deep work. So do you mind running us through your product ecosystem? So you're starting with your marketing, and then they come into a fairly low-priced short event, which I think is the social confidence. Do you mind stepping us through?
Yeah, sure thing. Happy to share that. So I guess in the past, I've trial and tested different titles, different themes, and it came down to social confidence. Like, that was the most popular event out of all of them. And it was the one that I was able to sell out very quickly and to fill up seats. So I created a 90-minute workshop, how to have social confidence and self-love. And my sales trainer has taught me that if you want to sell something, you need to have a 90-minute event to establish trust with the person before you sell anything. So it has to be 90 minutes. So I extended my workshop from 60 minutes to 90 minutes. And then from the 90-minute event, they come along to Be Your Greatest Potential, which is a full day event. So how to have social confidence and self-love is now $35. And Be Your Greatest Potential, the full day workshop, is $250. And that includes lunch. That also includes trauma release work. That includes self-reflective exercises, energy healing, a concoction of different things where you have a deeper understanding of yourself and your archetype and how you can start seeing your setbacks as a way of success. And then from there, people can decide if they want to take themselves to the next level, which is Set Your World on Fire retreat. And that retreat is a 3.5-day sacred journey to finding themselves in trust and guidance and confidence. And at that retreat, it's very holistic. It's very healing and nourishing because there will be vegetarian or vegan meals provided. There will be morning yoga classes for you to connect with your body, especially for those who have a low self-esteem with their body image. This is a great way to start appreciating your body. And there would be meditations. I use crystals. I use random music for people to meditate so they can start shifting, I guess, their energy or kundalini. And also, I create a personalized trauma release process. And this is based on an experience where they were not able to confront. And we create that same experience that they can confront in a safe space that is holding themselves back. And it's just amazing to see some of the results that the retreaters got by doing this event. And I've mentioned that there's this one lady who was in a lot of pain and she was coming out of a relationship and she was so strong in her victim. Like, wow, she's pretty brave to do the retreat. Because I'll put her in her place. And I was able to help her to unleash her her vindictive behavior towards her ex and her hatred and resentment that she had towards him and towards herself by putting herself in that situation of being desperate for love. And when she was able to come out of it the other side, she was actually vomiting because, you know, she was suppressing a lot of grief and she was numbing her feelings about one of her parents being passed away. And she was so disconnected from her body and from her emotions. And so this purification process had to happen for her to start feeling again. And at the end of the retreat, like, she started to have more energy, she started to feel more radiant, and she could feel her self-love growing within herself. I had another guy who came into the retreat, and the first thing he said to me was, "Are all the rooms locked? Like, is my bedroom locked? I know I'm the tallest and biggest guy in the retreat, but I just wanted to know if my bedroom is locked, because I'm scared that someone might get me." And it was just amazing, like, what kind of fear he was holding on to, but I don't blame him because of the way he was brought up. And he had a father who put him in the bin as a kid and humiliated him. And that deteriorated his self-worth. And so he came to see me because what he wanted is to feel worthy of being promoted again, to be worthy of love and be in a relationship and let that, blossom into a marriage and children. And so when we did a trauma release process for him, he was able to confront his dad. It wasn't easy for him, but we chose someone in the room to represent his dad and someone in the room to represent him as a little kid, where he felt he was being dumped in the bin. And when he was able to stop seeing himself as a monster and actually putting the blame and the cause onto his dad instead of himself, wow, he took his power back. And it was just so amazing, because at the end of that experience, he did a 180. He was connecting with people. He was bubbly. He was happy. He was chirpy. Like, I'm like, whoa, what happened to him? Like, it was just amazing, the kind of results that you see in 3.5 days. And then from then onwards, they can decide to take it further by doing my new program, which is Awaken Your Radiance. And that's a 3-month program.
I was just commenting on how I think it's so fantastic that you're able to get these sorts of results. I love hearing from the people that have been through your programs, because it is this deeply transformative work. And I love that you're able to take people on this journey to the point where they do feel safe to go deep and vulnerable with you in this way. Hugely confronting work. But I know this sort of work has not only that immediate outcome in the room where you can see them more connected, but it also has that longer term outcome, because you and I have done similar sorts of work, group work together, and very, very confronting. And I know that it has these transformational, life-changing results. So that's super exciting. Congratulations.
Thank you. Definitely. And I forgot to mention, I guess the retreat is $19.99 and Awaken Your Radiance program is $17.99.
Okay.
And payment plans are offered as well to people. As well.
Yeah, so I can see you stepping people up there through the investment and commitment, but also that trust and safety, and taking them deeper into the work. So it's really well thought out and really well crafted. And I'd love to hear more about your journey as you shifted focus from doing a lot of one-on-one coaching through to this more leveraged space where you're doing group work. But we'll come back to that, because I think it makes more sense to first talk about Jess and your origin story. I know this work is really, really important to you because you went through personal trauma of your own. So why this space? Why do you work in this space? And yeah, what does this mean to you?
So I guess I've been doing, life coaching, healing, trauma release kind of work for about 5 years now. And what has brought me to this work, or what has drawn me to doing this work, is that I went through the lowest of my lowest ever in my life. And that was at 29. So I'm 33 now, turning 34 this year. And at 29...
Top that you look at.
I'd take that. Thank you.
Nice.
At 29, I was I hit my rock bottom. And at that time, I gambled away by selling 2 positive cash flows investment properties that I had. And that's a very high achievement for my age, considering I was earning a low income at that time as a retail assistant or a beauty therapist. And at 29, I sold the properties. I used the funds to start up my dress business, and that didn't succeeded at all. I was slaughtering myself in it. I was working ridiculously long hours and not getting much result. I was only able to sell a few dresses and wholesaled a few dresses, but it wasn't enough for me to earn an income from it. And at that time, I was dating a married man, and I thought he would leave his mentally ill wife for me. And I was really struggling with my relationship with my immediate family. And I had my final session with a relationship coach. And I was at the point where I've just lost everything. Like I only had $100 left in my bank account. I had no savings. I had nothing. I had no safety net. And in that last session, she said to me that, you know what, Jess, you did this to yourself. And that's when the penny dropped for me. I'm like, holy shit, I can't believe it. Like, I was so desperate. I was willing to take on her advice this time. And I was open to receiving that feedback, that it hit me so hard in the heart. And I just couldn't believe that this was a hell that I created for myself, because my beliefs were that I was unworthy of love and money, and that I don't deserve this. And what I deserve is to be a disposable woman to men. What I deserve is to work myself down to the ground in my business. What I deserve is all work and no play. And that's how I lived in my childhood experiences. And I wasn't able to make that correlation until I did deeper work on myself. And at that rock bottom, I hardly had any money. I lost all confidence, and I wasn't successful at all in love and in relationships. But I can definitely say at that point in time that my ego was broken, and I finally woken up to those moments of truth. And that is that there is another way to this. There is another way of living my life, and that it requires. What happened next for me was that I had to figure out next steps. Okay, how am I going to survive with $100 in my bank account and get myself out of this mess? Like I was renting with other people in a shared granny flat, hated it, hated the landlord. So I did a lot of things that was way out of my comfort zone, and I feel it's out of reach for many people for me to put my life back together again. And I guess for me, it started in this 3D world that we live in, which is the physical world, where it's all about survival, food and money, that kind of world. So I started working myself through that world first, because back at that time, I was very much living in poverty, and I wanted to get myself out of it because I didn't want to be homeless because I wasn't able to afford the rent. So I had to eat my humble pie and line up to Centrelink. And as soon as I walk into the door, I was like, wow, this is definitely not where I want to be. And I knew that I had no choice but to turn myself into Centrelink and start receiving social welfare payments. And I had to start looking for a job. And I was getting casual jobs at that time. And I had male friends and a guy that I was having a casual thing with, giving me some money or getting me groceries for me to get by. So that moment in time, it was so hard. Like, I was just in survival mode every single day, and I had to be so creative in, okay, how can I bring in more money other than looking for jobs and relying on guys to pay my way?
Wow.
So I started having my life coaching business, and before I became a qualified life coach, I started to get clients through Facebook because I was just sharing what I was going through. I was sharing in a way that was vulnerable, and people started to see there was a change in me. They're like, whoa, what happened to you? And I started to get inquiries about, can I see you for life coaching or mentoring? And that's when I started to do one-to-one private coaching, and I was mainly attracting females at that time who were struggling with their self-confidence. They were suffering from anxiety or OCD. And it was the first time I've ever coached people who lacked confidence, who have anxiety, who have OCD. Like, it was the first, but they trusted me for me to guide them. And at that time, I was just doing 1 month, 3 month, and 6 month coaching packages. And then later on, I had my first client who was very depressed. And after that, I just had a phase where I had no clients because I was working full time in a job in corporate. And along the way, I just thought to myself, why am I struggling to get clients? I had like a year where I had no clients at all, and I just didn't understand why. And I realized that, working full time in a job for me to have the lifestyle that I can have and go beyond that poverty line, I needed a full time job. I needed to get off Centrelink, and I have, and I'm so glad that I'm not on it anymore. And, so for me, it's like, okay, well, there was this deep angst and desperation to dig deep. Do I really want to do life coaching, or am I happy to do my 9-to-5 job? And it took me, I guess, 3 years for me to work that through. And I've realized that, what, for me to do life coaching or trauma release, whatever you want to call it, healing humanity, for me, that gives me the greatest purpose in my life than a 9-to-5 job. And I had to really dig deep on, what I wanted, and to be clear on that and make a devotion to that commitment. And once I was able to see that and fully commit myself to that, I was actually made redundant. And yeah, just I guess 3 weeks ago, I was made redundant. And yeah, and in the past, I used to see that if I was to get fired, and it has happened to me before, where I was fired, I would take it personally, and I would be so clingy and attached to the pay because I thought, oh, shit, I'm still in survival mode. But I'm in a very different place right now where money isn't a big thing in terms of survival. Like, I see money as a different kind of source or energy. I don't see it as scarcity or poverty anymore. I see it as a way that it's a way of receiving and supporting and allowing me to live my best life. And it's a form of self-worth as well. And the way I see my business now is that I realized that for me to leverage my time and my expertise and the amount of support that I can give is through group work, group coaching. And that's why I've switched over from one-to-one coaching to now just group work. So group workshops, group events, group retreats, group programs in a short amount of time where they get the most results. So that's the focus of my business. And now I'm getting, I guess, I'm putting myself out there, and I'm getting more people who are interested in interviewing me. And I'm really excited to be featured on more podcasts. And there's this one that I would be featured in Singapore. So I decided to go out of my comfort zone and start building my presence in Singapore and Malaysia. So expanding my services outside of Australia and go for the Asian market. And I feel Singapore and Malaysia, more so Singapore, they have more of an open mindset with mental health and self-esteem. And I really am looking forward to being interviewed this Wednesday about it. And this guy, he runs a happiness conference as well. So it's a possibility, I guess, or a pathway to potentially be a guest speaker for that conference and to share my work there. We'll see where it takes me.
Amazing. Congratulations. That's really exciting.
Thank you.
I love what you told me about, and you've been talking about, is this idea that when you're in that high vibrational state and that energy, more is coming to you in terms of clients and opportunities. It's just being attracted in. Could you tell us more about that journey? Because I know it's not an easy transition from one-to-one coaching through to group work. How did you make that transition, and where did those sort of shifts in energy really come into it and make the biggest difference?
I guess for me, when I started to do deeper work within myself, I had a lot more realizations, and I've realized that for me, the most powerful experience for me to hit into the real raw depths of my soul is through group work, because the feedback you get, the support that you get, the healing that you get, the growth that you get, as opposed to one-to-one, is just astronomical. And I've realized that if I want to put out my best work, I feel it has to be group work, no doubt about it. And that's based on my personal experiences. And I've seen the results when I started doing group work, how open people are as opposed to one-to-one, and that desire to support each other and to change when it gets really tough, as opposed to one-to-one and creating that codependent relationship with myself. And another thing that I designed my services to be group only is because that one-to-one, people rely on me, and they just think there's no other world but my time with Jess. And my time with Jess is precious. It's only for 1 hour, and I get something out of it. And to me, that's not healthy, because these people who come and see me, they have a lot of anxiety issues and afraid of being socially accepted and connected. And I feel like if people come into a group, they feel far more supportive. It's a lot more healthy, because my energy and focus is not just on one person, it's on each individual, and each individual can support each other to grow. And I guess for me to make that transition, I needed a strategy in place. And for me, that strategy was that, okay, how can I attract and receive more clients and do some group work? So for me, I realized, okay, I got to get off my high horse and just focus on Facebook Live, because I didn't want to be bothered in showing up to a venue for my time. I had to let go of that mentality and see, okay, you know what, Jess, you have to put yourself out there. So I put myself out there by creating face-to-face events. I started with 1 hour events. I started half-day events. And then I realized I need to extend these events with more time to add more value and increase my pricing to make it more profitable for my time. And, as I get more experience doing workshops, it has helped me grow more confidence. It has helped me see how things can be improved in my workshops, how things can be delivered differently, how, I guess, what are the different things that I can present that would enable them to grow and evolve in their way of thinking and in their way of being. And now I'm seeing a sales trainer, and she's the most expensive mentor I've ever invested in. And I told myself back then when I was doing business coaching in my dress business that I would never, ever see a business coach or do any form of business coaching again, because I didn't get any value out of it. They were sucking me up dry, and I wasn't getting any results. But then when I saw the sales trainer, I really believed in the system, in the strategies, and in the outcomes that I would get by doing her work. And it's only recently, the past few months, I've started to implement it. And today I'm really refining my branding and changing my messaging, and to speak at a far more deeper level than just confidence. Because as my sales trainer said, confidence is an insecurity, but trauma is a need. And so what I want to sell is a need, not an insecurity where people just think, oh yeah, oh, I can do it in next month, in the future, whatevs, I can put up with this for now. But when people are in that emotional pain, like that lady who came to my 90-minute workshop and signed up to my retreat, that's the sort of work and problem that I want to be a part of.
Wow. It's been an incredible journey from the sounds of it. It's come a long way. It's evolved a lot over time. Lots of lessons there for us to be able to go away and unpack as to where you've had to pivot and reshape what you're doing. Amazing that you've been able to come through all of that and create a model that works. So congratulations to you.
Thank you. Well, I just wanted to say that, with business, and even now, it's trial and error. Like, you're always testing, even with my programs, like I'm always testing, I put it out there with the program and I get feedback why people don't sign up. And then I just retweak my program to meet their need.
Perfect. Amazing. So a lot of persistence there. And yeah, that entrepreneurial mind of being able to pivot and tic-tac as you need to refine in on what the market responds to.
Definitely. It's gold.
Very cool. All right. Well, we've probably come to time now. Thank you for bearing with me and the technical difficulties that we've both experienced. I think this has been a really valuable conversation. I'm so glad that we've been able to have it and make it happen. Where can we find you online?
You can find me on Facebook, Insta, YouTube, if you just Google Life in Confidence. Otherwise, there's my website, which is lifeinconfidence.com. So it's life, lifeinconfidence.com.
Perfect. And we'll drop some links to those in the show notes for this episode as well. Well, thanks again, Jess. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing with us so openly about your own personal journey and your own experiences and the lessons you've learned about business and how you structure things in such detail. It's very generous. Thank you.
My pleasure, and thank you for having me on board.
So there we have it, folks, jessxgoh. Now, even though we had a couple of technical difficulties, I really enjoyed this conversation. Jessica has done incredibly well to find her niche and the right energy and the right product ecosystem to step her clients up and allow her to serve them and give them that deep transformation that they deserve. And this is really how we make a positive impact in a much greater way, by leveraging our time, our talent, our technology in the way that Jess has done. So I really hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. Leave us a comment and let us know what stood out for you, or your lessons in building your business. Or if you have a question for Jess, I'm sure she'd be more than happy to share her insights. And until next time, remember, we all deserve to have our trauma heard and released, and we can all make a bigger positive impact if we're determined and we leverage ourselves really, really well. Okay, take care. Talk soon.
That was the Heal and Transform podcast with Andrew Ramsden. If you enjoyed the episode or found it valuable, ask yourself, who else do you know who would benefit from it? pass it on or send them to healandtransform.org/podcast. And until next time, remember, to make a bigger positive impact, we need to leverage ourselves, tap into the right technology, and collaborate, because we can only heal and transform the world together.